Hello everybody and welcome back to the Kingdom Hearts HD Dream Drop Distance playthrough. We're back with Riku in La Cité de Cloche and there is another massive gargoyle.
What?
And yeah, this one's a bit of a nightmare because it just sets everything on fire.
Like this is fair. No use. I gotta run for it.
So yeah, while you could, you know, try and get all of the chests on your way through this, you are kind of just going to want to absolutely leg it because the gargoyle is just going to be constantly attacking you and raining fireballs down on you. And while it can, you can hold it and try and murder things as you go, it really isn't worth it because he is just going to be constantly attacking you. So you might as well get the ones that you can do in these little nook areas because he does struggle to hit you in here, but it's still a bit of a nightmare. So yeah, just avoid it if you can and just leg it through the area. I'm just being stubborn right now. And a little bit cocky, I suppose, because I'm just like, yes, of course I can do this. I don't have to him try and avoid getting hit. I can just bulldoze my way through this like a crazy person. Technically I probably could, but it is seriously not a smart move. Because as you can see, it's very, very easy to get hit really badly. And it's just easy to come back to this area later when you're not getting shot at, and at least then you'll be able to just get through the entire thing, pick up all the chests you need, and murder any Dream Eaters that you would like to, because they're not really going to be getting in your way. And we're going to have a very similar instance of that in the next room, actually. The gargoyle really does just like to chase you. It's a bit of a dick, to be honest. Because yeah, in the outskirts here, does exactly the same thing. And obviously this is a bigger area, and there are a few more slightly challenging Dream Eaters that you can potentially face down here. The hilarious thing is that ultimately, to get where you're going to be for the final boss fight of this world, obviously not the final boss fight, that would be way too soon in the game. I always seem to make that mistake whenever I'm referring to different worlds and different levels. I'm just like, yeah, the final boss, and then my brain goes, no, not final boss, boss of this area, they're two very different things. I think probably the only time where I never make that mistake is when I'm playing like Pokemon and stuff, because they're one of the few games where the bosses have a specific name, so it's gym leaders, and the final boss fight's the champion, so it all ties together, and you don't have to think about whether you're calling them the wrong thing. Whereas in most JRPGs like this, I suppose it's probably something that actually afflicts the likes of Kingdom Hearts more so than other RPGs, purely because it is very world-based. Because when you're sort of dealing with dungeons more so than worlds, it's the dungeon boss, or the boss of this dungeon. But in that ilk, it would be the boss of this world, so I'm clearly just absolutely crazy and don't know what the hell I'm talking about. What's new?
Stand aside, Captain Phoebus.
I will not. What have these people done wrong?
I have proof this family gave harbor to gypsies.
That's not a crime.
I can think of few crimes that are greater.
Ah. What demon is this?
Oh, you are mistaken, Captain Phoebus. This is no demon. It is righteous judgment. I have been granted this power so that I may smite all gypsies now and forever.
This is all wrong.
He won't listen. Once you've fallen that far, there's almost no coming back.
How dare you? I am a virtuous man. Good and evil shall be made plain. Once the gypsies face the fires of judgment,
No, you don't!
You alright?
Well, I can't say you didn't warn me.
You should take it easy. I'll deal with Frollo.
Thanks. Gotta tell you, this is embarrassing having to rely on a kid.
You wouldn't be the first. Sorry.
I'll admit, you look more capable than me right now. All right, be careful. It looks like that creature is heading for the cathedral.
Okay, got it.
And ooh, get a bit of Sonic Impact here. But first off, we have a flashback, which unfortunately is not the Hellfire scene, but hey, I can live with that.
To save the weak-minded from being so easily misled.
Misled? Sir?
For 20 years, I have been taking care of the gypsies. And yet, for all my success, they have thrived. I believe they have a safe haven within the walls of this very city.
What are we going to do about it, sir?
Stamp them out, one by one.
You make your point quite vividly, sir.
So yes, Frollo's fallen pretty far, but despite that fact, they didn't burn down the windmill house in the end. I mean, obviously in the original film, he does just go and burn it down anyway, which is just awful and appalling and abhorrent, and I suppose really does in the film itself show just how far Frollo has fallen. I mean, you kind of already have figured that out, but it's one of those sort of signifying points in the film where you just look at the monster that the man has become. And obviously that's sort of the whole point of the Disney version of Hunchback of Notre Dame, who's the monster and who is the man, sing the bells of Notre Dame. And obviously the idea is that while Quasimodo looks like the monster, he's the man, and while Frollo looks like the man, he's the monster. It's so clear, it's so obvious, obviously. Kind of explaining it is a little bit patronising, but you know, when I'm trying to pad out bits of commentary, it fills time, so it does the job. And no, that's not going any further. I really need to link up there, and while I can't get any further there, I can get Spark, so I will take that. Okay, thank you, bye. Annoyingly, it's not something that Riku can use. Riku can only use... well, he can't use Spark or its further iterations. That is a Sora-only move. There are a few of them like it. I believe Riku has a few of his own exclusive moves. Although, I am primarily... the dodges and the blocks are the ones where there's kind of the major difference, because Riku has his, eventually, the barrier shields. I believe there's Dark Impulse. There's also Dark Aura. There's a few dark moves, which obviously Sora's not going to have. And, oh yeah, he has Sliding Crescent, whereas Sora has something slightly different. So they do vary a little bit. But I'd say Spark in that line is probably the only real move difference that I can immediately think of whenever I'm thinking of actual commands that differ between the two. The main thing is obviously in terms of how they play and the linking and so on and so forth. Which makes sense. Whenever you create a game with multiple characters, you always do want them to be different enough that they're engaging, but similar enough that players can use either character quite easily. It's a challenge that I suppose most of us don't necessarily always think of when we're playing games, because I mean, why would we? But it certainly is something that should always be thought about, and ooh, lucky. Oh. Well, at least I know it's a battle portal. Because I'm always more likely to go through a battle portal than I am a friend portal, because obviously, as you've seen, they're a bit useless. And the way that you can tell which one it is if it disappears, it's a battle portal. Well, if it disappears when other Dream Eaters turn up, it's a battle portal. If it stays, it's a friendship portal. So that solves that one. And since this is just a block one, it does sort of just make sense of, well, we can just sort of sit and wait for them to come and attack us. Generally, you know, they're just going to be going in one direction, so it's not too bad. But actually trying to get them to attack sometimes can be a bit of a pain, as you can see, because I'm just like, guys, can you come and attack me? And then the one who's off screen decides he wants to go for it. But with that, we're going into Darkest Fears and going to try and cause as much obliteration in it as possible. Not really doing a very good job at that, mind. So the one thing with the drill size is that they can juggle you quite well. And whenever an enemy can juggle you in this game, it's a nightmare. Obviously you've got aerial recovery, but for some bizarre reason, I don't know whether it's I just wasn't pressing the button at the right time, or what, but aerial recovery just doesn't seem to work quite so well as it does in the previous Kingdom Hearts games. So, whereas previously it might have been somewhat easier to dodge and get out the way of an attack, because if you've been flown up into the air, you can sort of air recover and dash out the way. Whereas for some reason, here, I always really struggled. I don't know whether it's because you've got to do it sort of the second you leave the ground after being hit, or what. But it's a very finicky manoeuvre, and I hope that that is one of the things that they do fix going forward. Because it wouldn't be fun to leave that in there, and look, Audrey's pretty much all leveled up as much as she's going to be able to, so we might as well swap her out for a different Dream Eater. We are going to be kind of obviously going through cycles of Dream Eaters, levelling them up, and so on and so forth, because it makes sense, but I do spend a lot of time trying to figure out what I actually want to be levelling up. So you have situations like this. I mean, that's not a big ability grid. Some of them don't have big ability grids, some of them do. I know for a fact I'm going to make use of Elphaba the Heavy Rep, because I do remember using her. Can't really remember some of the others. We'll see how we get. I mean, there are certain ones where I'm just like, yes, I know I use you, because I want certain abilities. So the likes of the Tyranto Rex, when that eventually turns up, of course I'm using that. I mean, why the hell wouldn't I? But others, I'm just like, what did I use again? As I said, this is the whole thing of coming back to something, having spent a while since you recorded it, and then you're just like, what's useful to me? And I will say that while there are sort of parts like this, from I'm gonna say around, well, towards the end of the first half of the game, I'm gonna begin to kind of cut out some more of these prolonged period of time prolonged periods of time in the spirit menus, because I spend a lot of time thinking and trying to figure out what's my best tactic to go with, and it can take me quite a while to decide sometimes, and other times I'm just sort of, flicking through just to see what will work, what I can get. So yeah, we'll go with Elphaba, and then we'll see what we can create. Well, first off, we can create a Toximander, so I'll definitely do that. Pretty much whenever I can create anything with a recipe, I'm just going to go straight in and do it, because why the hell would I not? And then, once those are depleted, and that's the point where I then go through and spend a while mucking about with all the different creation tools that I have available to me. So, continuing our musical theme, Toximander is going to be called Mark. Because I believe that we're currently in a little bit of a Rent vibe. I think that was my trend at this point in time. So I believe we've had an angel and so on and so forth. So it'll all tie together. Oh, there's one. There's one. There's an Ice Queen Ace. Let's build one of those. Aww, isn't he cute? Although, I mean, the green eyes are slightly terrifying. So yeah, continuing our Rent naming, this guy's going to be called Collins. Yay! So yeah, I suppose because we are going to be spending a bit more time here before, we go and continue our journey through La Cité de Cloche. The Dream Eaters were quite a divisive thing, and I think remain a quite divisive thing within Dream Drop Distance. Mainly, I think, because a lot of people see them as being a bit pointless, I suppose, in that they've not got the personality of Donald and Goofy, obviously, and also because they sort of take away the potential options of having Disney characters join us as party members, because we have to fight with our Dream Eaters, and that's something that has always been a particularly... It's something that fans have always really loved in the Kingdom Hearts franchise. So there was that. The other thing is that all of them are really, really garish. And people... In general, people don't like anything that is overly garish because they're just not happy with it. It just looks ridiculous. And, I mean, totally fair to believe that and think that, because, of course, it does look nuts. And I suppose the other frustration was that, obviously, the abilities being linked entirely to the Dream Eaters meant that you... To get the best stats, you had to stick with certain Dream Eaters. So, but to get the better Dream Eaters, you couldn't get them until towards the end of the game, and at that point, you've not necessarily got the chance to all the kind of relatively easy way of grinding to get the LP points, to be able to cover all of that, and just in general, they had the potential... Well, they had the potential to be interesting, but I think they just end up being a bit of a time sink that people just weren't really feeling quite so much as actual party members. And I get it. I mean, in a way, I do feel sort of the same, but I think because I have that sort of Pokemon urge in my head a lot. I mean, I'm currently playing Let's Go Eevee and having a delightful time. I like the collectathon element. I like quirky looking monsters. It's like I'm totally fine with all of that, and so it doesn't faze me in any way, shape or form, I suppose. And that's not saying that I wouldn't necessarily prefer having Disney characters and Donald and Goofy or something of the sort. Like, I mean, it would have been really cool to go through these areas with, like, Phoebus and Quasimodo. That would have been pretty awesome. But it's not here, and while perhaps I would have liked it if it had been here, I'm not necessarily upset that it isn't, and that we've got what we've got. I suppose it's something that happens quite a lot in gaming, and, well, criticism in general. Because what I've seen happen really frequently with things is a whole shift towards criticising things for what they're not rather than what they are. And in some instances that can be a... well, no. Sometimes you can't help feeling that something could have been better, and you wish that it had done other things. And, oh my god, we actually only have one chest remaining. Wow. That went surprisingly well, and I think I know where... I think that's on the bridge, actually. Yeah, so... sometimes you can't help it from happening because, of course, when you watch something, it misses out on things that it could have done, and if it had done those things, it probably would have been better. But particularly with games, people seem to judge them entirely on things that they're not. So, a lot of games get judged as if they were Dark Souls by the fact that they're not Dark Souls, and it doesn't allow the games to effectively have their own identity. I mean, a sort of good example, I suppose, would be Crash Bandicoot remake, so the Insane Trilogy. Of a lot of people in their kind of reviews and criticism, and by criticism I mean both positive and negative, not, oh I hate this criticism, it's more the general thing of game criticism. A lot of people ended up focusing on the difficulty being like Dark Souls or something of that ilk, and it was a bit like, but it's not Dark Souls. It was never meant to be like Dark Souls, so why are you treating it as if it were or should be? Probably not the best example in the world, but there are numerous instances where it does happen, and it's something that I wish did stop, because I don't think that it is a helpful thing when you're trying to present what should be a at least somewhat objective take on a game. Obviously, fully objective reviews are impossible. You cannot account for taste and so on and so forth in any sort of review, because something that you might like, another person might detest, something that you hate, someone else might love. So it's impossible to do those sorts of things. That said, you can be at least somewhat objective in at least making your biases known. So, for example, I've been a long-standing fan of the Kingdom Hearts franchise for many years, so I'm automatically predisposed to like things the game does, and I'm also predisposed to forgive some of the things that it does. I'm more likely to than someone who is perhaps new to the franchise and might think, well, that's a bit of an annoying quirk. Whereas I'm just like, yeah, that's Kingdom Hearts, I'm used to it, it's fine. It might not actually be fine, but because I like the game series, I'm more willing to forgive it. And equally, there are certain games that, like, I am really not a fan of the genre. So, I mean, obviously, when I was doing my playthrough of Vanquish, I did try to make as clear as possible that, at the end of the day, I am not a third-person shooter player. I don't play third-person shooters, because I'm rubbish at them. And that ultimately colours my perspective on that game. And so, some of my criticism of certain elements may be harsher than other people's would be, because I'm not seeing that evolution of mechanics and the genre that other people did. Equally, because I'm a massive fan of Platinum games, there are certain things that I am more willing to forgive in Vanquish that perhaps I should not have maybe forgiven. So yeah, it's one of those awkward things, and part of it is because games criticism, I don't think, has quite found its place yet. Because if you look at like film and literary criticism, they are very well set in stone as to what the different bits and pieces are that relate to that. But game criticism, it's still trying to find itself, and I don't know whether it will, but we'll see. Either way, everything's on fire.
Is she going to be alright?
I'm fine. Thanks to Quasimodo.
Quasimodo, where did the creature go?
It's up there.
Right.
Wait. Wait, I'll go with you.
Thanks, but stay with her. Quasimodo, did your heart have the answer?
So, as everything burns, part of me wanted to have, a fight out here, but clearly that wasn't going to happen because they've got the structure up and they're not going to throw any Dream Eaters at me there. They will, however, throw some in here, without.
Well, I guess you three got this covered.
It was a walk in the park.
How would you know? You don't have any legs.
Yeah, but... Aw, give me a break. It's just a figure of speech.
Both of you pipe down and get ready, because here comes some more.
Yeehaw!
It's up there.
I mean, yes, it's up there, but I do want to do a little bit of Dream Eater murdering before I go up and face it. If only because if I can at least get maybe another extra level in there, that would be nice. Because, as you saw with the Gargoyle when we fought it with Sora, it's not necessarily the easiest of fights. I would say that Riku's version is easier than Sora's because of something that you'll see when we actually get into the fight. But it is something that, yeah. If you can get to a higher level, that's perfect, but clearly I couldn't be able to go face down any more Dream Eaters, so let's just head up to the roof and face down our foe.
Yes, let it burn. The flames will consume everything. You see? This is the power that has been granted to me.
I see a sad old man with a dark heart.
Again, you are wrong. Now you will be judged, just like the rest. Judgment is mine!
You're Ansem! Why are you here?
Your best friend is never far.
So sad. The cost of yielding to the darkness.
You could write a book about that.
But I embrace the darkness. And unless you hurry up and learn to do the same, your story will end just like his.
I walk the road to dawn.
Still afraid of the dark, I see.
Wait! He thinks I'm afraid of the dark? No. Not while I have the Keyblade. It will guide me to the light.
And with that, we're going to take on Wargoyle and teach it what for. What is quite fun about this fight is that, yes, we can sort of fly throughout it. You leap over the square and you effectively, ride the heat blast. And it really does give you a lot more movement in order to take on the Wargoyle. But the other bit about that is that because of this sort of extra area that you have to fight it in, and because it's very aerial based, it doesn't actually move about all that much. So it's not got the same frustrations that you would have had with Sora's Wargoyle, because that one moved about the arena a lot, whereas this one very much does not. And it's definitely why I prefer this version of the fight to Sora's, because it's just a lot more fun. Also, I really do like the design of this Wargoyle, because obviously it's incredible stained glass wings. I mean, they're amazing. But following that, I will say that the way that Frollo goes out in this version is not quite as exciting as in the other version. I think that was probably the one bit where most people were going just like, give me a boss fight against Frollo, or a Dream Eater refined version of Frollo. That would have just been amazing. But they didn't give us that. But hey, it's very rare that we actually get a human fight of a corrupt Disney villain. I don't think they've ever really happened outside of Clayton in Deep Jungle in the original Kingdom Hearts. All the other ones have been kind of actual proper villains, and so they've had magic and already sword fighting on their side, so I suppose it makes sense. But yes, that is the end of La Cité de Cloche for Riku, and everything is now okay.
Master Frollo, he made me live inside the bell tower, but the real walls were the ones I built around my heart. You helped me see that, Riku.
I was speaking from personal experience.
I'd say you still keep a lot locked inside.
We all do that sometimes. There are just some things we need to keep separate from the world at large. At least until we have time to figure them out.
I know the road my heart walks.
Hey, Axel. You haven't forgotten.
What?
You made us a promise.
I did?
That you'd always be there. To bring us back.
Yeah.
Got it memorized?
Best friends forever. Where? What happened to me? Roxas. That's me. Dylan. Alias. Evan. Yenzo. We're people again. But only the ones who joined the organization here. I guess Xehanort doesn't count. But where are Braig and Isa?